In this video, you're going to watch me try, fail, try many times again, and eventually succeed in accomplishing my goals. Hey, I'm Evan, and I'm currently on school break. So what better time to torture myself by setting an impossible goal of making a video game? From scratch, as a beginner, who's never made a game before, or done any coding whatsoever. Okay, well, I did a bit of coding like 2 years ago, but I only really got up to if statements, so you could say I'm a bit underexperienced. Over the next weeks, I'll give updates of how I'm going, starting with this one being the first one. So, by now, you're probably wondering what sort of game I want to make. Well, just before the summer break started, during exam season, I was sitting at my desk wishing there was a funner way of learning all these chemical solutions. And then it hit me. Well, not literally. What if I could make it into a cute alchemy-themed game in which you could physically play with the chemical solutions, instead of writing everything down the old and boring way, like that one I keep seeing on my Pinterest feed? And along the way, I could share what I used, tips, and what tripped me up so badly I was scratching my head for 3 whole days trying to make sense of it all. So, to keep myself on track and not overwhelmed, I decided to start off by setting myself 3 miniature goals that I'll share with you in this first log. But before I get ahead of myself, I need to choose what game engine I want to make the game in. After a few minutes of listening to speakers on the internet, I decided to go with Godot because it's both lightweight as well as completely free, and because I'm broke and my computer is old and grumpy. So, I opened the game engine following the speaker's instructions to make a new game file. Selecting the mobile, I press create, and the game engine crashes. What? I tried again. It does the same thing. I restart my computer, and it still crashes. I haven't even gotten started and I'm already failing. After a bit of fiddling around, I figure out that only the compatible setting works for me. Great. Now that I've gotten the game engine working, this seems as great a time as ever to tell you the details of what exactly I'm trying to make. You will play as a mum in an alchemy/chemistry lab, which doubles as your home. Throughout the day, you will be prompted with challenges brought up by the character, your daughter, or simply known as the kid. These challenges will be based off a particular question in the NZQA Level 2 Organics Chemistry exam. One mouthful, in which you are given 3 solutions which have lost their labels, and through a series of tests you are to figure out which one they are. In the game, you take these 3 solutions to your work desk and add different colored liquids to the sample to see how each of them will react. Based upon that information, you can then replace the solutions labels. So I had been working around a bit by now, making multiple screens, and I needed a nice way to go back from inside the game to the main menu. So here along came my first mini goal: to have a pop-up settings screen that could take you back to the main menu. My first idea was to have a literal pop-up screen that could pop up if you click the button that could take you wherever. But I very quickly realized that I had no idea how to do something like that. So on to plan B, make it a screen like the others. But I ran into another problem. If I wanted to make a back button, I had no idea how to specify whether the player had just come from the talking area or the work desk area. I could make 2 screen settings, but I didn't want to make 2 because that could slow things down and I didn't want to do all that extra work. Okay, on to plan C then. In a stroke of thought, I got the idea that you were playing the game in your sleep, and thus, to leave the dream, you had to wake up, and to do that, you first had to go to sleep, which is kind of like a roundabout way of thinking of things, but it did the job, and if you clicked it, it would have a short video of falling into bed. Just a quick note here. I used a textured button because a regular button doesn't allow for pictures, or at least I don't know how to put pictures on a regular button. This led me down another path of thought. If you're sleeping while playing, then maybe the main menu should be a reflection of that. That very night, I was lying in bed thinking about the drawing I had made for it, and decided I absolutely hated it, and promptly deleted it the following morning. On to mini goal 2. For my next mini task, I decided I wanted to be able to move things around in the work desk area. But in order to do that, I must first have a drawing of all of the items, and to do that, I must first know all of the items to draw. So I decided the best way to get a list of all the chemicals you could possibly use to figure out what is to go through all 12 years of the past papers that were available to me. Yes, starting from 2012 all the way up to now in 2023. When that was done, it was onto the fun part, drawing all of them. Now that that was done, I can move on to trying to move them around in the working desk area. To make it easier, I split it up into two things: the picking up and dropping off function, and the being able to place them only in certain areas function. After all, you can't have bottles being placed in mid-air. And here is where the 3-day struggle begins. Day 1, I was laser focused the entire day, but only ended up being able to figure out how to do the pick up and drop off function. Usually I could blame this on my inconsistent nature, but today I had been working the entire day. I was very frustrated with myself, and you can really hear this through my nightly journal. Plus, I had stayed up late to be able to achieve this in the first place. Day 2. The following day, I continued working on the certain areas function, but lo and behold, I both didn't figure out how to do it and broke the pickup and drop off function. Day 3. I decided the best thing to do was to read up about scripts because at this point I didn't really have a great idea of what they were. After a bit of reading, I figured that the scripts were basically just like an instruction manual for the nodes, and with one attached, you could extend the node's function. I know that probably kind of sounds stupid to anybody who has been working with this stuff, but getting started with it, I had no idea how to think of anything, and now at least I know how to think of scripts. Anyway, this method of thinking must have worked somehow, because I got something working the very next day. Now to repeat it for 6 others. Great. Is what I said the previous night to myself, but I really couldn't be bothered doing all that work, and I figured that I would change it later on, and 1 is good enough for concept anyway. So, on to mini goal 3. For my third goal, I wanted to make a start on my dialogues. So I set off looking for a structure that I could steal to implement into my game. The first tutorial I settled on had a pretty good look with a branching dialogue system, which seemed very fun to play around with. The talker directed me towards the add-ons tab and it wasn't there. Just a quick note to anybody new to this add-on stuff, it's kind of like a Minecraft mod in which you can find a data pack that you like, install it, and play Minecraft with a bunch of new tools or blocks. To get it back to the add-ons page, there were other dialogue add-ons, but I didn't want to install something that I knew nothing about and wouldn't be able to use. So I went through all of them searching for further instructions that any of them had linked. Luckily for me, I managed to find one pretty quickly, which I will link to below. And after referencing the instructions manual, I managed to implement a start to my dialogue system. Thanks all for listening. If you're curious to see where this project will go in the future, feel free to join me on this journey, or if you're watching this in a few weeks, you're in luck and the next vlog is probably out. Well, that's me. See you around.